Welcome to the audio summary of Humber College Real Estate Program. Course 3, Module 8, Part 2, Insurance Considerations. As a salesperson, you can help landlords understand the importance of Number 1, including a clause in the leasing agreement requiring tenants to carry tenant insurance. Number 2, explaining to tenants the limits of the condominium corporation's insurance and the liability risks of not having insurance. Number 3, explaining to tenants that tenant insurance policies have a deductible that they are responsible for paying in the event of damage. Insurance issues and options. Tenant insurance is a type of insurance that covers both liability and contents. As a salesperson, you can help the landlords understand the importance of A. Including a clause in the leasing agreement requiring tenants to carry tenant insurance. B. Explaining to tenants the limits of the condominium corporation's insurance and the liability risks of not having insurance. C. Explaining to tenants that tenant insurance policies have a deductible that they are responsible for paying in the event of damage. Property insurance. Landlords are ultimately responsible for any damage done by tenants and any associated costs. They should not count on tenant insurance to cover everything for the following reasons. Number 1, the tenant's insurance may not cover all liability costs. Number 2, the tenant may have canceled the insurance policy after signing the lease. Number 3, the tenant refuses to pay the deductible. To remain valid, property insurance must include disclosure of the terms of leasing. Provide the insurer with a copy of the lease and a copy of the tenant's proof of insurance. Inform the insurer of any changes to the tenancy. Inform the insurer at the outset if the unit will be used for short-term rentals. Short-term rental considerations. Many condominium corporations prohibit short-term rentals, e.g., hotel, Airbnb stays, bed and breakfasts, or rooming houses. Renovations and liability considerations. If landlords are going to undertake renovations in preparation for leasing a unit, they must use fully licensed and insured contractors to prevent liability. Maintenance fees. A salesperson should advise a prospective landlord to consider monthly maintenance fees as a variable expense, rather than as a fixed expense. Repair costs. Repair costs are an unpredictable cost in rent calculations. Special assessments. If a condominium corporation lacks sufficient funds to cover a necessary emergency repair, such as a leaking roof, then it has the right to levy a special assessment. Often special assessments are phased in, and unit owners can pay them in installments over a period of months. Risk of tenancy termination. The Residential Tenancies Act (RTA) permits the landlord to give notice of termination to a tenant if the landlord, in good faith, requires the unit for residential occupation for a period of at least 1 year for themselves, a specified family member, or a caregiver to someone living in the house, providing the property or building is comprised of 3 units or less. In addition, on the sale of a property by the landlord and the buyer requires vacant possession for their own family on completion date, 60 days notice must be provided to the tenant in accordance with the RTA. Legal requirements. The landlord must use a landlord and tenant board form to initiate the eviction. The form is called the N12 or Notice to End Your Tenancy because the landlord, a purchaser or a family member requires the rental unit. Restrictions on assigning and subletting. A condominium corporation cannot restrict a tenant from subletting or assigning a unit to another tenant, as this relationship is governed by the Residential Tenancies Act and is between the landlord and the tenant. Roles and responsibilities of the landlord. Landlords are responsible for ensuring their tenants use the leased unit for residential purposes, as defined in the condominium corporation's declaration and bylaws. If short-term rentals are prohibited by the condominium corporation, landlords are also responsible for ensuring their tenants do not sublet their unit for short-term periods. Clauses defining permissible types of subletting should be included in the lease. Keep the condominium corporation informed. Section 83 of the Condominium Act, 1998 requires landlords to notify the condominium management of the intention to lease or renew the lease of a unit within 10 days of the beginning of the lease or renewal. When tenants terminate a lease or end a tenancy, landlords must notify the condominium corporation in writing within 10 days of the termination. Pay monthly maintenance fees. Landlords are responsible for paying the monthly maintenance fees, unless the lease designates the tenant is responsible for payment of all or part of these fees. Under Section 87 of the Condominium Act, If the landlord fails to pay the fees, then the condominium corporation has the right to demand payment of the fees directly from the tenant. Provide keys, fobs, and remotes. Landlords are responsible for providing all necessary keys and fobs to tenants when they take possession of the unit. This requirement includes keys and fobs for the unit, mailbox, common areas, exterior doors, and storage units. Inform tenants of updates and changes. Landlords are responsible for providing the tenant with an up-to-date copy of the declaration, bylaws, and rules of the condominium corporation within 10 days of entering into a lease or renewal of a lease. Ensure tenant compliance with rules. Landlords are responsible for ensuring their tenants and their guests comply with the condominium rules, regulations, and bylaws. According to Section 58(10) of the Condominium Act, they are legally liable for tenant noncompliance. Arrange for repairs. With respect to repairs, landlords are responsible. Roles and responsibilities of the condominium corporation. The condominium corporation is responsible for maintaining a safe and high-quality living environment for all residents, including tenants. Roles and responsibilities of the condominium property manager. As you learned in the module Preparing to Buy a Condominium, most condominium corporations retain a condominium management provider to oversee day-to-day operations. The condominium manager answers to the condominium board and executes their decisions. Many condominiums have two levels of property managers. 1. The condominium management provider contracted by the condominium corporation to manage the complex. 2. Individual property managers contracted by individual unit owners to manage their condominium property and tenants. Property managers for individual units. Individual property managers have these responsibilities with respect to the landlord. Be fully insured as a property manager, keep records of individual leases, provide monthly or quarterly financial statements, collect and deposit rent and related fees, ensure maintenance and repairs are completed on time, on budget, and properly communicate all relevant information about the lease and tenant to the landlord, attend owners' meetings as the landlord's proxy, if authorized, inform tenants of repairs and maintenance schedules, both to common elements and to the unit interior, arrange repairs to the unit interior. Withholding taxes if the landlord is a non-resident investor, i.e., not residing in Canada. The property manager is required by the Canada Revenue Agency, CRA, to withhold 25% of rent payments and submit this amount monthly to the CRA before submitting the remainder to the landlord. This withheld amount is a deposit on income tax owed on the investment income. This is the end of Course 3, Module 8, Part 2. Hope you would have liked this video. Thank you.